The community bank, the ICBA, officially files a letter to the OCC to deny trust bank charters for Ripple and Circle. This happened yesterday. There has been a lot of notices like this to the OCC to prevent Ripple, Circle, and Paxos and a few other companies from getting these trust charters. I don't know if they're going to be successful, but they are doing this all the time now to try to stop it. Now, we were supposed to get the current version, the text of the Clarity Act was supposed to be released to the public this week. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. You do have the Tether CEO agrees that Coinbase should back down on the Clarity Act fight. We did find out some information here that between Coinbase and USDC Circle, Coinbase makes about 1.35 billion per year with their deal with Circle. And so some of their business activities would be directly impacted here. And I think that's why you're seeing such a fight here from Brian Armstrong and Coinbase. But the community is trying to say, hey, enough is enough. This isn't just about how much money that you make. This is 20% of Coinbase's revenue, though, that does come from Circle here. And so I think that is maybe what they're a little worried about. And so I have seen some pushback on X from people who have Coinbase accounts. I'm not sure if you guys are paying attention to that, but hopefully we will get a text next week and move this thing along, because we really need to get this done over the next I think we have another maybe two to 4 weeks to get the Clarity Act done. If not, we might not be seeing the Clarity Act done this year. So Coinbase has blocked the Clarity Act twice, and it's not looking good for the entire crypto industry. Imagine you've been fighting a court case for 4 years, you win. The judge rules in your favor, and just when the law is about to make it permanent, someone who wasn't part of your fight, blocks it because it hurts your paycheck. That's what's happening to XRP holders right now. The Clarity Act defines tokens as commodities or securities. It protects developers, protects self-custody, gives the industry the legal framework that has been waging war for since 2020. It did pass the House with bipartisan support, 294 to 134. Then Coinbase blocked it in the Senate twice. January, Armstrong pulled out of the support the night before the markup, and it was canceled. March, White House brokered a compromise. Coinbase rejected it again. The fight is over stablecoin yield. Banks want it banned. Coinbase makes $800 million a year. It's actually a little bit more than this, and that's 20% of their revenue. I wonder if it's 800 million clear, because I think it's 1.35 billion total. Meanwhile, the Clarity Act covers everything else: token classification, CFTC authority, tokenized securities, and self-custody rights, all frozen over the one feature that has nothing to do with most of us. I keep thinking about this. Ripple fought the SEC for 4 years. We held through delistings, FUD, and uncertainty. RLUSD was built compliance first, no yield drama, no lobbying against legislation. Ripple inside the DTCC, BNY, central bank pilots building while others are trying. And it says if this bill doesn't pass in May, midterms will take over and it'll likely die in Congress. And so, there has been a lot of concern that if it doesn't happen now, it won't. Yeah, see, here was the thing I was talking about with how much Coinbase makes. Coinbase and Circle generate 2.75 billion in USDC reserves in 2025, with 60% flowing to Coinbase. That's roughly 1.35 billion tied directly to rewards revenue. That's the number I was using in my head when I was reading all of that to you guys. And then Coinbase does take 35% commission on staking rewards across all major coins like ADA, TOM, AVAX, DOT. So they're making a killing off of us. And, I wonder when that's going to, I don't know. I've always thought that Coinbase is doing this for themselves and not really for us. And I think that's really kind of speaks highly of where we are right now in their actions. Senator Loomis did tweet this out at the end of March. The Clarity Act is the best thing that could happen to DeFi, the DeFi community, and finally gives the legal certainty they deserve. Developers, validators, node operators will finally have safe harbor, and we can ensure American innovation can stay right here on U.S. soil. We also have this, the Clarity Act needs to pass. Let me play it.
The White House has reportedly reached a tentative agreement on crypto regulation. In plain English, John, what do you want to see?
So what we want to see is fairness for the American consumer. We all know from our everyday experience working with banks that the interest rates you receive on typical savings accounts are very, very low and have been low for some time. So we encourage competition around all aspects of markets, including interest. And we want to see a market structure bill that allows for individuals in the US abroad to access tokenized assets quickly, cheaply, safely, and be paid a reasonable fee and a reasonable interest rate on behalf of their deposits.
How far are you away from getting that?
Look, these things are always very, very complicated. I'm not sure if your viewers remember the Genius Act, which regulated stable coins. That seemingly passed through quite easily, but in fact, there was wrangling up until the last minute. This is a market structure bill similar to the Commodity Futures Modernization Act of some time ago. These are very, very expansive, critically important pieces of legislation. So it's understandable that they would be horse traded until the very end. However, if you look at the prediction markets, we're now closing in at about a 70% probability of it passing. So we are very, very confident that all the adults are at the table. They're working hard and doing what's in the best interest of our country to make sure that U.S. capital markets remain the envy of the world.
Man, a lot of stuff is going on behind the scenes, guys. Make sure that if you're now joining, that you are liking the stream if you're on YouTube here. And if you're on X, if you could retweet out the stream, that would be truly incredible. I did want to transition. There is a lot more news that I want to get through, especially what was going on with quantum. Google AI put out a report on quantum, blockchains and how if they're preparing to be quantum resistant. And there was a lot of really good information about the XRP ledger and a few other chains. We're going to get to that towards the end of the stream here. There's just a lot of stuff that has happened over the last few days that I wanted to get you guys caught up on. I did think this is a valuable clip here. This is BlackRock's head of digital assets, Robbie Mitchnick. It's kind of having this little kind of chat here on tokenization. It's a minute long. Let's play it.
And eventually we're going to have, in my mind, all assets be tokenized.
Agree with that last bit, Robbie?
I think there's a very decent chance of that. I definitely don't think it's a foregone conclusion at this point, but that's okay, right? Because the level of transformation and impact, if that does happen, if we do have the Rob Haddock thesis of everything's going to be tokenized, is massive, right? Across our entire financial system and infrastructure and the role that various players play or will no longer play or play differently in the value chain and how markets operate and how investors access and trade and what they have exposure to. So you don't have to believe it's 100% to place big bets around it, right? You just have to believe it's some material probability. I think a lot of times we struggle as a general human form with uncertainty and probabilities and things that are, well between 0 and 1. And this is one of them, but there's good reason for, all of us here and in this room to be taking significant steps in recognition of what could happen.
Yeah, taking significant steps on what could happen. I think when you take a look right now at the crypto market, I have some data here actually. Where is that? Was that the next tweet? Yeah, it was literally the next tweet. Let me show you this. Here is the market sentiment right now of what you guys are looking at. Public attention to the crypto market is pretty much as low as it has been in the last 5 years. No one outside our bubble is paying attention anymore. This tells you something very important. It tells you that most retail traders have completely left the crypto market at the wrong time. You literally are at the point where you're having NASDAQ, the DTCC, the New York Stock Exchange, all moving forward with tokenization. You have central banks moving forward with their plans for central bank digital currencies, whether it's wholesale or retail. You have all of these conversations with the largest financial institutions, broker dealers, everyone, all working towards tokenization. And people are just like, hey, the market's down. I don't want to participate. Now, those people obviously have a short-term view on what's to come. They're not thinking 5 or 10 years down the line. And that's unfortunate, right? And I know there's a lot of things going on in our lives, but really, this is probably the only time that you're going to have over the next few months to really position for the rest of your life here. Once things start to get to kind of utility prices and things, crypto assets are used in infrastructure, you don't think you're going to get these 80%, 90% pullbacks, right? And so we might see lower prices here over the next few months. There are some chart analysts that say summertime could be a little bit more rough for crypto. And there's a lot of macro events that are happening that are really hard to know if the market's going to be going up or down, but you got to be thinking long-term here. And institutions are thinking long-term. And if you're not thinking like an institution, you're thinking like a retail trader, and institutions always win here. All right. I did want to show you this. We've had a lot of information about Franklin Templeton and their recent moves here. They did acquire a digital assets platform over the last few days, and they have been working with Ripple, Solana, BNB, Canton, Stellar, and a few other chains. And I mean, they're coming out and pretty much saying everything we know.
We interface with financial institutions all over planet Earth. We were early and aggressive. I mentioned we just started experimenting in blockchain. We began to understand that maybe there's a number of different blockchains that are going to be winners here. Blockchains are technologies. They'll continue to iterate. In the information-based economy, we think of these as just utility rails and pipes for the information-based economy. So we want to be on as many of those ecosystems as we can, because that's where we're going to find customers eventually. And so, it's not one winner takes all. In our environment, we think of these as kind of digital nation states. They have their own
Digital nation states that have their own economies.
They're aggressive in pursuing and growing their own economies. We want to grow with their economies alongside of them, whatever we may decide to bring as a securities related product or service on top of those rails. And so that's kind of where our journey. So our journey actually permeates across a number of different blockchains. I think we may be on either 10 or 11 blockchains currently.
And we know that Franklin Templeton has been working with Ripple and the XRP ledger for years, even when we were going through all of the lawsuit and we were dealing with that and having those really tough times. They were there to support us. And man, they're really just telling you what the whole game is right there. If you're just paying attention to these head of these institutions telling you how important these blockchains, these digital economies, these digital nation states. I mean, wow, huge, huge, huge. Now, Federal Reserve Jerome Powell today says that there is a little bit of worry about there is effectively zero net job creation in the private sector right now. Let me play this.
The thing that I think a good number of people on the committee are concerned about is just the very, very low level of job creation. If you adjust what has been the trend job creation over the past, let's say 6 months, if you adjust that for what we think, our staff thinks, is the overstatement due to overcounting, effectively there's zero net job creation in the private sector.
All right, listen, guys, I'd love to stay on and keep talking. I have to go look at a new place. We're trying to find a new rental, and I had to meet my wife here in about 30 minutes at this new rental that we're going to take a look at before we go. And then we got to pack and do all kinds of things tonight. So I love you guys. You know what? Thank you so much for all your support, and I will see you next time. All right. All right. Aloha, everybody. Peace out.